Hi Aquarius, welcome to your August 2019 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Well, this is one of those months, Aquarius, that there's a lot of concentrated energy in one sign, and then the party goes to the next sign down the pike. So in this case, the month starts out with 4 planets in Leo, and Leo's your opposite sign. So we're talking about 7th house action. And so this involves you and another person. Typically with the 7th house, we connect it to a spouse, a significant other. However, if you have gone into business with somebody, then it would be your business partner perhaps. Or if you are starting to work for yourself and you have clients, you may be building up that kind of network. And so that's very much in your life in August, where the one-on-one relationships are taking, center stage. But it could be a lawsuit. I would say that if it was something like a lawsuit, that it probably would be going on since at least July, like an ongoing thing, not that it just suddenly came out of nowhere, because you already come into the month with these planets there. So that's pretty amazing to me. And actually with the moon, the new moon had just occurred on the 31st, or depending where you are in the world, maybe the 1st of August. But it's all there in that opposite sign. So, maybe you're planning a wedding. That would be really interesting, because to me, Aquarians are not the marrying kind in the sense of like, oh, I'm going to get married and have this big wedding. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there's some of you who are interested in a big production like that. But, now that I think about it, if you are in love with somebody and thinking about spending the rest of your life with them, you may just be consumed with ideas of, like, if you are planning on tying the knot, oh my gosh, am I making the right decision? What should I do? Like, kind of getting cold feet, or, it could be going that way too. Just a little side note here. I remember really getting the impression that Aquarians were adverse to marriage and even commitment in general. And then I was reading somewhere saying, people who are Aquarians, they can get married or they can commit to a relationship because they're a fixed sign. They can stay loyal, in other words. And actually, I think they were talking about Venus in Aquarius, because I have that, and that was probably why I was reading about that. And so then it occurred to me, that makes sense. If somebody is a fixed sign, that they are going to stick around. And yet there is always going to be that desire to do things differently, to not just have the typical type of relationship. So that may be what's going on, where you're thinking, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, but I don't want to feel like I'm confined. I don't want to have to do what every other person does who's in my position. And I feel like I'm being forced to conform to other people's expectations. So, anyway, that's how the month begins. And then on the 11th, Jupiter turns direct in Sagittarius. For you, this is the 11th house, which is the house that you rule. I read it said that the 11th house is the luckiest house. And that kind of surprised me, because Jupiter rules the 9th house, and Jupiter is associated with luck. But the 11th house that you rule is a house that deals with your hopes and wishes, which I have recently also seen the 11th house described as the house of long-range goals, which almost is a better way of putting hopes and wishes, isn't it? Because, it sounds more like on point. It sounds like less just wishful thinking and more, this is what I intend to do. This is my dream, that life that I intend to fulfill at some point. In other words, I may not have it yet, but I'm working on it. And there's just more of like kind of a down-to-earth approach, and it's less vague. It's more like something that you are initiating, I don't know. That was just my feeling. But anyway, so I don't know if there was some kind of dream that you had that you feel was thwarted in some way in recent months, because it's back on the table. Actually, when Jupiter goes retrograde, it still is supposed to potentially provide some sort of opportunities. However, just by virtue of, the nature of retrogrades, I could see things kind of stalling out. And the other thing about the 11th house is it has to do with friendships and groups. And because I was just talking to you about all the energy in the 7th house, which is really like one-on-one type of relationships, to me, this is an extension of that, where you can network and you can just add to your list not only of friends, but of connections, of people that you might be able to tap to kind of sing your praises, or as potential clients even. And, when I think about some people when they are starting a business, everything has kind of changed, because there are lots of small businesses and they can't necessarily, you don't take out ads in the newspaper anymore. So how do you publicize your business? I think you really rely on others to spread the word. And not only that, but the internet. And the internet is connected to the 11th house. The 11th house is a collective. So it's, groups of people. And because Aquarius and Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, is associated with technology, this is why the internet is connected here. So perhaps you can gain through technology in terms of expanding your base and things of that nature, and now it's really going to happen. Maybe you were, trying to decide which direction to go in. With Jupiter retrograde, you may have even, it turned inward, and this becomes more about your values than anything else. And so it's like questioning, what are your goals? What are your, your aspirations for what can make your life the best it can be? So the other thing that's happening is your ruler, Uranus, is going retrograde. So I'm wondering, I was asking Virgo, who is ruled by Mercury, if they feel different during a Mercury retrograde, and now I'm wondering if you're going to feel different. A lot of things are happening on the 11th. Jupiter goes direct, Uranus goes retrograde, and Mercury goes into Leo, or goes back into Leo, I should say. But regarding the Uranus retrograde, this is happening in your 4th house of home and family. So this has been something that has been, Uranus went into Taurus, I think in March, but it flirted with it last year at some point. So Uranus in the 4th house is going to mean, Aquarius, that you are going to have to, be very flexible when it comes to your housing. Because, for instance, let's say that you have just moved into your dream apartment. Well, there's a possibility that you might have to move. I'm not sure when, but it could happen. Uranus is very unstable. It's very unpredictable. So it tends to add a bit of instability to whatever house it travels. And this is the house. It's the house of your home base. So you have to be prepared for that. Again, as a fixed sign, you may not like to hear something like that, and you may dread anything that smacks of instability. However, if you take the approach that the universe has your back, then anything that the universe throws your way can be viewed as a potential blessing, even if it happens to be very much in disguise. Uranus in the 4th can simply mean a period where you are just not, you're more nomadic, you're less tied down to a specific area, and that might suit you very well in some cases. So now that Uranus is retrograde, this can indicate more, curveballs. However, I wonder if for some of you there is a connection to this, if you have a lawsuit going on, that it has to do with some kind of a house, or I even would say some kind of probate issue where a house is part of the whole fight, legal battle. And I should say, too, I don't know, somebody told me what they call it, but what they call the money in a divorce case, like the shared resources. Somebody told me it's not an estate, but somebody gave me a name, and I can't remember what it is. So maybe you're going through a divorce. And I think I was saying the same thing to Leo, because you and Leo are opposite signs, and you've recently been through eclipses in the last couple of years. And so that could have affected your marriage house, and that could have led to divorce. So Mercury goes back into Leo, where it was when it retrograded back in the earlier part of July. And so it's coming out of its shadow. It's going to take a few more days for that to happen because of the degree in Leo that it was in. But for all practical purposes, we're getting back up to speed with the Mercury situation. And this was in your 7th house. And this could have been something related to a contract, potentially dealing with work matters that got held up, was problematic in some way, and now can get resolved fully. On the 15th, there's a full moon at 22 degrees of Aquarius. So this is your sign, this is your first house, and this is you kind of like maybe turning over a new leaf, shedding an old skin. This may have connections to the other things that I've been talking about. Maybe you are thinking to yourself, I'm now, like maybe if you're getting divorced, this is the first time I've been single in 20 years. I am a new person, and you're like letting go of that past history. Full moons are a time of letting go, purging, cleansing, and just making room for a new version of yourself. Just on a side note, the number 22 is a master number. It's a master builder number because it reduces to 4. Even though you're not supposed to reduce master numbers, it has a higher vibration of the number 4. So this can be about letting go of something to create or actually build something that is more stable for your life. And sometimes it's letting go of a person, realizing that the love that you have is in the past. You may love them as a human being, but you have to let them go because you just are not growing as a couple anymore. On the 18th, Mars goes into Virgo, and this is the beginning of the foray into this 8th house energy, which is quite intense, does deal with shared resources, and could be indicative of other things that are at play in your life at this time. So Mars in the 8th house can be somebody who is really fighting for money that they feel belongs to them, but that is coming out of like a pot, so to speak. So an inheritance is one example where multiple people may be trying to or have been promised money, but maybe there's a feeling, oh, this is unfair, I want more, I deserve, or even if you feel like you were left out of it, that you deserve it. Same with if you're dealing with custody battles, which, child custody, who has to pay the most? Child support, you'd be surprised. Is it going to be the typical situation, or is it a special circumstance? Or if you're getting divorced, some of these things, which is kind of interesting. I don't really have an updated understanding of what's going on, but I remember when I was a kid that they made a big deal out of alimony or palimony. I don't know if that's like if you're living with somebody, but the idea that, should a woman get money for having been with a man, whether or not she's married, or when, like if you are a woman who has her own career, can you demand alimony? So now things have changed so much. Back in the 70s, it was really a new kind of a thing. Women were not, that was when women were really starting to work, go into the workplace in large numbers. This can be other types of shared resources, or even just money that you get on behalf of somebody else that you don't earn from your own job or own work. With Mars, there can be a certain aggression, though. That's why I'm assuming it has to do with something where there's a conflict. Mars can also indicate conflict. So basically what I'm trying to get across here is that if you're fighting over money, make sure that it's worth it. Make sure that you're not lowering yourself, that you're not just, draining yourself because your mind is caught up in a concept versus, what really needs to occur. I can just say that happened with me, where I was in that kind of a probate situation or the potential for it. And I was like, no, this is unfair. And I really got caught up in that. And then I realized, wait, what am I doing? I'm going to respect the wishes of that person. And I'm going to have peace of mind because I didn't enjoy the potential for having to contact a lawyer, having to appear in court and all that stuff. I didn't want that. So it just immediately put me at ease. And so you may feel a sense of righteous indignation, but you may decide that you don't want to necessarily take it to that level. On the 21st, Venus goes into Virgo, the 8th house again, and Venus can be money coming to you from something related to inheritance or other shared resources. Sometimes, like the spouse, if you are married or coupled, that person is getting a raise and you benefit from it indirectly. Venus in the 8th house can be great for relationships where you are really connecting at a deeper level. So one thing I didn't say when I was talking about all that energy in the 7th house, I mean, that could simply be you've recently gotten married or moved in together, and you're just really with that person 24/7. And so with Venus in the 8th house, you're like just loving this person at a much deeper level, and that means that you're trusting that person into your confidences, I don't know, but you're because the 8th house can be secrets and things like that. It's what's underneath the surface, and that can be very good for relationships, actually. On the 23rd, the sun goes into Virgo in that 8th house. So 8th. As a matter of fact, this is all like, what I'm talking about is all 8th. The sun is, it could be even like your own persona becoming more like a Scorpio's. And for Aquarius, this is really cool because you tend to be so detached that it's nice to have that influence that is this very emotional, but emotional in a covert kind of a way, sign like Scorpio. And you just may be delving into metaphysics and the occult. Isn't it interesting? The occult, the word occult means hidden, and the 8th house is about like the mysteries of life and just mysteries in general. You may be reading mysteries, but definitely if you are somebody who is interested in studying things like astrology and the tarot, this is a time for you to do that at the end of August. On the 29th, Mercury goes into Virgo. That's like kind of like the detective, the person who's, the conspiracy theorist, somebody who is really doing their research into things that are kind of forbidden and hidden, taboo. There may be something specific. This can be about death. Death is the 8th house. Mercury can be a contract. So perhaps if you're signing a contract that has to do with a will or some other kind of settlement that has to do with money that you're being given from, whether it's an inheritance or the divorce proceedings, that could be happening. And like I said, we're out of Mercury's shadow, so that should be good. And on the 30th, the new moon is at 6 degrees of Virgo in that 8th house. So a new day is dawning in the area of the 8th house for you. So I definitely think some Aquarians may be getting into astrology. You're actually associated with astrology, and you definitely have intuitive gifts. So hopefully you will, put those to use and embark upon a journey of discovery through your own, being self-taught, or if you are enrolling in some kind of a class that does that might be happening at the end of the month. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. If you'd like a personal reading, my website is rainamoonastrology.com, and the link is below. Take care. Bye.